Before we start getting into square roots and cube roots, we're going to do a real quick exponent review. So if you remember, when you have 5 to the power of 2, 5 is your base number and 2 is your exponent. When we square a number, that means we raise it to the power of 2. So that's read as 5 squared, which means 5 times itself 2 times, which is 25. And when we cube a number, that means we raise it to the power of 3, or that 3 is your exponent. So 5 to the power of 3, which is read as 5 cubed, which would be 5 times 5 times 5, which would be 125. So square root then is actually the opposite of squaring a number. The symbol used to show a square root is called a radical sign, which kind of looks like a little check mark with an extra line. So for example, we read that as the square root of 36. So ask yourself, what number times itself equals 36, the number inside the radical? So our answer is 6, because 6 times 6 equals 36. Now, a lot of times you'll get answers which we call perfect square roots. That means our answer is a whole number, which means no decimals or no fractions. And here's a list to show your first 12 perfect squares. So for example, 4 squared, 4 times 4 equals 16. Now, sometimes, unfortunately, you won't have perfect square roots, which means your answer is going to include a decimal. So for example, the square root of 30. Now 30 falls somewhere between 25 and 36. So that tells me when I take the square root, my answer is going to be somewhere between 5 and 6, which it's actually about right in the middle, about 5.5. Now, fortunately, you'll be able to use a calculator for this. So to do this on a calculator, you're going to start by hitting the second button, followed by the x squared, because you'll notice there's the radical symbol up top. Type in the number that you want, hit the equal sign, and then you'll have your answer. So you also are going to be asked sometimes to find the square root of fractions. So it might look more challenging than what it is. You're actually just going to break it apart into different pieces. So the square root of 25 is 5. The square root of 36 is 6. Piece those two answers together, and you get 5/6. Now, if you recall when we looked at integers, when you multiply two negatives, you get a positive. So for example, 6 times 6 equals 36. But also negative 6 times negative 6 also equals 36. So in this example, if we're trying to figure out what number squared equals 36, it could be positive or negative 36, or 6. So can you have a negative square root then? Well, it's okay to have a negative on the outside of the square root symbol, but it is not okay on the inside, because you can't multiply two negative numbers by itself and get a negative solution. So that is called a not real number, meaning it doesn't exist. All right, so let's look at cube roots. The opposite of cubing a number is called a cube root. It's a very similar symbol as a square root, except you'll notice it has a little 3 with it. So in this example, we read it as the cube root of 27. So you ask yourself, what number times itself 3 times equals 27? And the cube root of 27 is 3. Now, just like with square roots, you also have perfect cube roots, which means when you take the cube root of the number, you get nice whole number answers, no decimals or no fractions. And there are also non-perfect cube roots. Now, to do this on a calculator, you're going to start by typing in the 3, since we want a cube root this time, not the square root. Hit the second button again, and this time you're looking for the root symbol with a little x, and your calculator will know to replace that x with a 3. And then just type in the number that's underneath the radical sign, followed by the equal sign, and you'll have your cube root. All right, so why do we need to know cube and square roots? It actually can come in handy, for example, looking at side lengths. For example, if we knew a square has an area of 36 yards squared and we wanted to know each side length, since it's a square, we're going to take the square root, which is 36. So the side lengths of our square are 6 by 6 because 6 times 6 is 36. And if we have a cube that has a volume of 27 feet cubed, and we want each side length, now it's a cube, so I'm going to take the cube root, which is 3. So that means each side length is 3 because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. So just remember, squared means you're doing the square root, and a cube means that you're doing a cube root. Have fun!